after tonight. You don't have to look up at the stars. No, 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 no.
Come take a look at my dream world.
Tonight. You don't have to look up at the stars.
Yeah, if you wanna come get it, then come for it. I'm so clean, my kick's nice, I'm Chuck Norris. Minute made the beat bounce, had to jump on it. Run for it, run, Gump Forrest Gump like hollow pumps, you gotta jump. No trouble, no double, I got a stun. You don't have to look up at the stars. Make one wish, you're looking at a star. Swag so fresh, you can put it in the jar. And the way I change gear, you can put me in the car. I remember when me and Seif used to sneak in every concert door. Now I got my feet in. Every day is Gift Friday, no weekend.
You don't have to look up at the stars.
Welcome back to your favorite live sports show. That is indeed hashtag this just in. Got a special episode, so I had to bring a special cast. Neil again moves from behind the camera to in front of it. And y'all know, once we're talking basketball, it had to be Larry and it had to be Ricky. Gentlemen, are y'all ready for arguably the best episode ever?
I'm here. I'm here just so I don't get fined. I here just so I don't get fined. That's what I here for.
Bring it on. Bring it on.
Since last episode of Foolishness, none. Because here we go, gentlemen. All four of us are old enough to remember after the 1992-93 season when Jordan completed his first repeat, his father was unfortunately murdered. And then right before the start of the 93-94 season, he abruptly announced what would become the first of 3 retirements. Ricky, there are some of us in the school of thought, and by some I mean myself, that believes it really wasn't a retirement the first time around, that David Stern handed him what accounted to a year and a half worth of suspension for gambling. Do you believe this, Ricky Nurse, or are you going with what Michael Jordan told us, that he did indeed retire from basketball?
Good evening, gentlemen, and thank you for the invite. Let me start off by saying I'm wearing my Rutgers University shirt as a proud Rutgers University alum. Another much more famous Rutgers University alum is that gentleman by the name of David Stern.
I know this.
I believe that gentleman had to take matters into his own hands. We want to believe, when it comes to North American sports, right, that our stars are not involved in scandal. We want to believe in the purity of these games and these sports, right? But then when we watch, as we all do, sports from all around the world, we see scandal after scandal in the 4 corners of the earth. But somehow in North America, there's nothing. We want to believe that a gentleman himself, whether it is playing cards on the golf course, he probably will bet on a red ant versus a black ant on the ground, which one would win. That this gentleman and all of these stories that we hear, where he would bet on himself after getting back to the hotel room at 4 in the morning, that he was going to drop 40 on the Raptors. And these stories continue to come out, that somehow this gentleman never bet on his sport where he could actually control the outcome. That's what we're saying, right? Starting off with, there is no way that you could convince me that Michael Jeffrey Jordan did not bet on the sport of basketball, did not bet on the Chicago Bulls, and it probably, like any addiction, got out of hand. And my fellow Rutgers University alum, David Stern, had to deal with it before it did more damage to the National Basketball Association. Gentlemen, thank you for the invite. That is my first submission.
Ricky, the script that Justin gave you is showing in your glasses, right? So that sounds exactly like so. Justin Marvel prompted you. He wrote that script for you. No,
it is also the night of the Oscars, sir.
Oh, there's good acting then. Yeah.
So we can wrap up the show, roll the credits, Neil. There's nothing else to say.
Please.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you, Larry. Thank you, Neil. That's it. So though, Larry, I'll give you a chance to rebut. I know you don't believe in it. So give me your proof. Why don't you think Michael Jordan was suspended?
My proof, I think, is your side that has to bring proof. There is no evidence. There is no evidence that he was suspended. I mean, Ricky said all of that just now. It was very well said. But me and Justin had the same debate about 10 years ago on a previous podcast where it went in circles for about three.
We're saying that, are you saying that we're hashing topics for the show?
Well, I'm not saying that. I guess you're saying that for like 3 hours, and we got nowhere. And I feel the same is going to happen here. But however, nothing. There's no proof, and I don't. From my own perspective, I don't understand the logic of why David Stern would just come up with a secret suspension. Like, Jordan was gambling. We know that 100% sure, for certain. He said there's many books written about it. Is in the news. He testified that he admitted to that he owed gambling debts. I mean, allegedly, one thing I do believe is that his father was killed related to those to his gambling.
I've never said that though.
You haven't, but I believe that. I mean, 1 and 1 is 2, right? However, what is the purpose of the 1.5-year suspension? Like, so that the heat could get off of him? I don't understand why David Stern would do that. Like, he did come back to basketball. Why why was the suspension for 1.5 years? As opposed to like saying, well, Jordan, you should just outright retire. We don't want this more. Just say that you want to play baseball and don't come back. Like, if that had happened, I would say, well, maybe that's true. But he did come back. So, I mean, he had to be suspended. If David Stern wanted to keep it under wraps, he could just say, well, Jordan, you have to cut out this gambling life. Don't do it anymore, and we won't suspend you. To me, the secret suspension doesn't really bring much logic to me. I have no more. My clip is empty. Go ahead, Neil. Help me out.
Oh, no. Go one or other. Well, go ahead, Neil. No.
Oh, sorry. I overstepped my.
I have my clip loaded. So go ahead, Neil.
No. You hold on, because you could come with a world of foolishness here, right? So you already saying you're already saying your accolade and Ricky to talk. So you can just repeat the same speech you gave him. So
I did not.
Listen. In the end, right? Everything Larry said, I agree with 100%. And fellas, we forgetting one very serious and critical thing. You know, David Stern, that went to school at Ricky's beloved alma mater, right? He is a man. He's a lawyer. He's a Jewish lawyer. A Jewish lawyer that loves.
Did you have to put that in? Come on.
No. I'm building to a point, and there's nothing disparaging at all. It's actually nothing disparaging at all. It is that they're known to love money and love when a good thing is working, right? Now, you have the hottest commodity in sports of all time in Michael Jeffrey Jordan, right? Shoe sales are off the charts. People watching the NBA, like people in China know about the NBA because of Michael Jeffrey Jordan, right? That man took the game in Barcelona with him on his back. The whole NBA, the whole USA, everything on his back. Dream team was his. Money coming out to David Stern ears, and you can tell me that man say, you gambling, yeah. There's enough heat for the NBA. Let me suspend you and not worry about the money. That man was willing to forego billions of dollars just so he could get the heat off of his price cash cow? Or is it more likely that my man say here too, right? The only thing that Michael Jeffrey Jordan could have been accused of, that he would have been banned for the NBA or suspended, was murder. That man could have done anything. That man could have walked into Macy's in broad daylight in Manhattan and take off the clothes off of a mannequin and walk out. And the man would say, boy, that is just life in the tropics. That's life in the big city. That's just what it is. I'm not saying Michael Jordan was beyond reproach. I'm not saying Michael Jordan was not a flawed person. I'm not saying that there weren't some things behind the scenes that Michael Jeffrey Jordan would have done. Like, I'm not saying he is a perfect being. However, I know David Stern like money. Shoot, I love money. And I am a commissioner in a sport. So I could only assume that David Stern loves money more than me. And when I know we have a lot of American viewers here. We have a lot of people in America that watch. We have a saying here in the Caribbean, particularly here in Barbados. When you have a jackass, you write it. Meaning that when you have a good thing, like, I guess the equivalent of that would be, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. You got Michael Jeffrey Jordan turning billions of dollars. After you come off the 70s and 80s, you in the middle of the 90s saying, child boy, life sweet. And you can say, let me suspend Jordan. Mike, listen, Michael Jordan had, back then cell phones were now coming in. That man probably had 150 voice mail messages every 3 hours with David Stern begging, man, say, look, I give my first daughter. That easy. Man, look, I can name a team after you. We can call it Jordans. So please come back to the NBA. You mean, Justin? I don't see why we are talking about this some 10 years later. Why is this something that swirls in your head? I know you got poor Ricky. Ricky is a fella I like. Ricky is a guy that I think, as a matter of fact, I actually up until this very moment respected Ricky's entire sports knowledge in track, field, boxing, shoot, you name it. But you have come, that's to show you the power of Justin Martin. You gotta be careful, man. You come talking foolishness, but he might get suspended. Who in the right? Listen, there's no commissioner in the galaxy that will suspend Michael Jeffrey Jordan. He could be playing in the Serie A league in Alpha Centauri, right? He could be playing Alpha Centauri Premier League, and Quetzalcoatl would tell him, man, nah, boy, you do a bad jump here, but you know what? You got a player called Money Have You Met? Come on, Justin, man. Come on, Justin.
You're correct though. There is none in the galaxy because the commissioner that did indeed suspend him has now passed away. God rest his soul, rest in peace, David Stern.
And that's another thing too. You hear speaking ill of the dead.
No.
Yes, you're talking about the man suspending, man. Come on, Justin.
Rest in peace, David Stern, my favorite commissioner of all sports of all time. So, Larry and Neil, in previous iterations of this argument, held me for conjecture. And I say, you know what, you're right, because I'm brain conjecture and I had no facts to support anything. So what I'll do for y'all ladies and gentlemen watching tonight is that I'm only going to bring facts and let y'all come to your own conclusion. I'm not going to get any conjecture here.
Hold on, where are you going to manufacture these facts?
No,
use Rumpelstiltskin. You can spindle some facts now out to golden thread. Let me see this though. Go ahead.
Only facts, gentlemen, only facts. Fact number one. When Michael Jeffrey Jordan retired and held his retirement press conference, one figure that was there present, very notable, was David Stern himself. Now, we've seen other retirement press conferences where you don't see the commissioner unless you're retiring at the end of a season during a game. Now, this by itself is not a major significance. What is indeed of significance during this retirement, would y'all guys know that Michael Jordan himself said, I may indeed return if David Stern would allow me back. This is not conjecture. These are Michael Jordan's own words. All four of us watched it. Hold on, no. All of us watched this. We heard him say, I would consider returning if David Stern would let me back. And why I find this so interesting, for lack of a better term, is that I have never heard an athlete during his retirement, at least at the peak of powers like Michael Jordan. I've seen Tom Brady retire. I've seen so many others.
No, hold on. Don't come now with Tom Brady.
Hold on. I have never heard an all-time great say, if I'm coming back, I hope the commissioner of the sport lets me back. Like,
well, hold on. Which athlete has retired in their prime though?
We have seen, all right, agreed, but we have seen athletes towards their end that talk about coming back, possibly still we've never heard them say, if I come back,
hold on,
I hope the commissioner would allow me back. And I say that to say, well, I'll let you make the conclusion.
Or this is God. This God disguised as Michael Jordan coming to say you're talking foolishness.
No, but hold on.
Okay. I thought you were frozen. Sorry.
And as you said, both of y'all have said, both Neil and Larry have said, there's no reason why the commissioner would want your cash cow out of the league. So if that's the case, then why would Mike say, I hope the commissioner would let me back? These are Mike's words, huh? That's number one. David Stern was at the press conference right next to Jordan's left-hand side. And he looked at Stern and he said, I would consider returning if David Stern lets me back. Go ahead, Neil. That's fact number one.
But can I answer?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, so I got again a bit of a delay here, but yeah, so again a bit of a delay here. But anyhow, this is my thing, right? Michael Jordan, as we all know, he likes a lot of trash talk. He likes a lot of banter. He's a very egotistical person, right? Even though he tries to come up with this full humility in press conferences and everything like that, we know Michael Jordan behind closed scenes. Michael Jordan is a man that is known to do a little bit of ribbing and speak tongue in cheek, right? So when he is saying, I hope the commissioner will allow him back, meaning that any commissioner in the history of existence, in the history of the universe, if Michael Jordan retires, if the man said, I might retire, 99.9% might come back, I might come back at 1%, if the commissioner would let me shoot. That is a joke. That's a joke. Hold on, Rasta. Hold on, Rara. Hold on,
I said it made sure. I only bring it back. That is conjecture. Those are, I can't say if he was joking or not. Those are Michael Jordan.
Come on, but you're doing the same thing that Neil is doing. You're
I bring it back.
Yes.
So no. Fact number 2.
You're bringing. Okay, continue.
All right. So the man said it. We don't know his meaning. But what does that mean? Hold on.
Exactly.
Hold on. We don't know his meaning. So what does that mean?
Again, I just bring the facts. Fact number 2 now, gentlemen, and one of the most pertinent, if not the most pertinent fact in my estimation. Jordan's words when he was retiring, because we know his father was brutally murdered. And what Jordan has told us, we've seen this in books, in documentaries. Heck, 3 years ago, we saw it in The Last Dance. Jordan said his father was like his best friend to him. These are Jordan's words, huh? So when he died, Jordan did say he wanted time away to grieve out of the public's eye and media scrutiny. Again, these are Jordan's words. These are facts. This is what he said. 6 months after announcing his retirement, gentlemen, not only did Michael Jordan return to the public eye, he returned to the public eye in the same city in which he played basketball for by going to the minor leagues, AA to be precise, of the Chicago White Sox. Now, what I find that most interesting, fact number 2, is that you said you wanted to deal with your father's death out of the public limelight. You didn't leave Chicago. You had an offer or deal from the Oakland Athletics to play in their system. You stood in Chicago because, again, Jerry Reinsdorf, who owns the Bulls, also owns the Chicago White Sox. You played in their AA system. It got to such a public fiasco, a media nightmare, that AA team did not play in its normal facility. They played in a bigger facility to facilitate the increased media that was there, that Jordan never shied away from. Jordan never scoffed reporters. He even had a massive CNN SI, what would have been Sports Illustrated, cover story on his return to baseball. Again, remember, this is the dude that said, I want to deal with my father's death out of the public limelight and media scrutiny. And what does he do? He goes to play AA baseball in the same city for Jerry Reinsdorf, goes to a facility, increases the size of the facility to deal with greater media. This is a man hiding from the public limelight because, again, yes, we all know Jordan's a great competitor. He has to compete. But Jordan is an avid golfer. He could have competed in golf off the scenes. He could have played wherever. He could have played pro golf. He could have done whatever. But Jordan instead decided his own decision to play baseball at a facility to facilitate even more media.
You don't want him to play in Botswana? You wanted the man to play. You wanted the man to play. So wait, hold on. Okay, all jokes aside. Hold on.
He said, I wanted to deal with this out of
but
the
you
public
said like
limelight.
6 months later, right? 6 months is a long time. Right. Maybe he was more comfortable going in the public like after that.
Okay, and hold on, because I can get to that. That's a good point, Larry. That's a good point because check, right? First things first, right? Since we we getting on the hypothetical rabbit hole, right? We don't know how. We don't know. We don't. All facts. So you're arguing that the man was suspended for gambling, or that he was suspended to help the AA minor league team for Jerry Reinsdorf?
I'm telling you, he was suspended.
No. Don't do that. Because you sent me the production notes. You made me do this nice graphic at the bottom, and it has, did Jordan retire or was he suspended for gambling? Don't come now telling me that the man didn't retire. All right, good. No. To address that, the man lost his father. That is a fact. The man said he wanted to step away to deal with it out to the public light. Like, he did that. Who are you to tell the man how, when, and where to deal with his grief? The man, hold on. The man also said that his father was an avid baseball fan, and that his father's hope for him would be to play baseball. And we all know, after the documentary here, so the other day, the pandemic, that Jordan wanted the love and affection of his father. Therefore, that man decided, after however long time he grieved, that, you know what, I should go and play baseball to honor my father. No, we somehow connected dots, right? That the man take time away for the team, but it wasn't long enough for Justin Marvel. So now there's a conspiracy. Did Gina make the tinfoil hat?
I did no such thing. I just said he wanted to deal with his father's death
and how
public.
And did how? Hold on.
And he's made.
How did he repay? No. How did he remain in public spotlight? You said he was missing for 6 months, right?
He retired. Well,
okay. And so what? So is that not dealing 6 months? Who are you to tell him how to grieve? So who's to say he can step away from the game from the limelight?
I know.
Oh, Dipsy doodling. I see it. I see it.
Yes, get him.
Oh, remember, no good gentlemen. As I said before, the Chicago Bulls owner Jerry Reinsdorf not only owned the Bulls, but he also owned the Chicago White Sox, the organization in which Michael Jordan just so happened to choose his career path in baseball. Again, this is a fact, not conjecture, because Jerry Reinsdorf himself said this in The Last Dance, that he paid him his full basketball salary. So, gentlemen, the fact here now, Michael Jordan's full baseball or basketball salary of 93 to 94 would have been $4 million. Why is that important, you may ask? Remember, Jordan only played AA baseball. He didn't even make it to AAA, far less Major League Baseball. Ricky, could you tell the kind folks what the average Major League Baseball salary would have been in the 93 to 94 season?
I would have to Google that one, sir. I was
just about to say, if Ricky could have put out.
I was going to read it.
Me too. I thought about me too. I honestly thought so.
The average baseball salary would have been less than what Michael Jordan made with his $4 million. Huh? You want to know how high Michael Jordan's basketball salary would have been while he was playing in AA? He would have made slightly less than Ken Griffey Jr., arguably the best player in baseball at that time. His salary was right in line with Mark McGwire, and his salary far exceeded, and I'm going to call some future Hall of Famers and All-Stars right for you right now, despite never playing a single pitch in major. His salary was more than Nolan Ryan, Ricky Henderson, George Brett, John Smoltz, Ozzie Smith, Paul Molitor, Larry Walker, Edgar Martinez, Gary Sheffield, and Deion Sanders in the 1993 to 94 season, because he got his full basketball salary.
So he was suspended with pay, is what you're saying?
So why is this important, gentlemen? Why is this? Where I'm going with this, a lot of people also forget that the owner that he played under was so notoriously cheap that Scottie Pippen, although being a top 10 player at the time, Jerry Reinsdorf absolutely refused to rework Scottie Pippen's deal, although at that same time, Scottie Pippen would have been the 6th highest paid player on the Chicago Bulls and the 112th highest paid player in all of basketball. This is not a man willing to give away dollars, but yet still you wanted to pay Michael Jordan at the salary of a top-end Major League Baseball player, although he did not play a single pitch of Major League Baseball, far less AAA. So you're telling me, hold on, Neil, you had your chance to talk, they did not interrupt you not once. So you're telling me no. You are telling me no that Jordan looks and asks David Stern, I would return if you let me back. He sits down and says, I want to deal with my father's death out of the public limelight, and he quickly re-enters it. And he is paid a full basketball salary of $4 million, as Ricky just put on screen, and y'all would not have known, $3 million more than the average baseball salary. Gentlemen, everything points and tells you Jerry Reinsdorf was told to pay this man his basketball salary because he is not in baseball. He is a suspended NBA player, because why else would a rich man give you money that you apparently or clearly do not deserve? Because Jerry Reinsdorf
He was suspended.
do it for Scottie Pippen.
But why?
Wait. I got this, Larry. I got this. So what you're saying, right, is Jerry Reinsdorf outed money for a cash cow that is not in the NBA and bringing people into his arena. So you are telling me that Jerry Reinsdorf, who is a businessman and has a player that is the greatest player of all time that brings seats into the arena. This man retires. You say, no, sorry. Here you tell it. The man was suspended. So somebody come with the cockamamie story and say, Jerry boy, we suspending and still pay. So now Jerry Reinsdorf is going to lose money because Jordan is not in the arena. So people are not coming to see him. They're coming to watch Scottie Pippen at his best. Hold on, Rasta. No, Rasta. Oh, no, right? And then you will come and say, no, that this same man, this businessman, right, that has Michael Jordan leaving, willingly out of this conspiracy, right? He can turn around and still pay the man this, as you and Ricky tell it, this absurd amount of money to play baseball.
So why would he then? He's not a good baseballer, and he is not.
So Jerry Reinsdorf is not a good businessman, then.
So why is he paying Michael Jordan?
But hold on, Justin. But you need to show why he was still being paid, because I still don't
show the working.
Why he was being paid. Even if he was suspended, why was he still being paid?
Why was he still being paid?
Go ahead.
No. Let me add.
Oh, sorry. Okay, my fault. I thought you were dodging.
Let me add on behalf of the conspiracy theory basketball club. Let's be real and say this, right? If we put ourselves honestly in a situation, hypothetically in terms of David Stern, and let's say that this man really did have a genuine problem that got to a point that it got out of hand. You had to, because of his stature in the game and the sport and globally, you had to find a compromise. Let's be honest, right? So I'm just playing it out. You had to find a compromise that allowed him to justify taking the time off. We had that, right? We had that with the dad and what he was going through. You had to find a way that his brand stayed relevant to the global media. Baseball, only 3 home runs, 51 RBIs, and 30 stolen bases in the city of Chicago. With the machinery that is North American media, you were able to maintain that, so that this brand didn't become irrelevant during the period of this suspension.
And remember, at that time in 93, 94, baseball was the king of sports in North America. Continue.
Correct. So you had that. And I could only conclude, if I genuinely believe this, which I actually do, right? That you had to have a time period that both parties agreed upon. That is where it can get a little messy, because I could genuinely believe that the player in this instance would be like, listen, I need to get back and make my move what, my God-given talent allows me to do. Whereas I could see how the league would say, yeah, but you also need to sort yourself. Because when you read some of these stories about Jordan had serious and repeated gambling problems. Let's not pretend that he didn't.
Yeah, but okay, question. Did he magically get better
Jeez, on
due to the suspension? Like, Did he still have gambling problems afterwards?
So the man was
Well, hold on.
hold on, the
No.
man was suspended.
No,
and when he came back, never gambled again.
I think the league needed to buy time to clean up a lot of his mess because there's stories about cocaine dealers with checks, and Jordan had to testify.
Yeah,
in
he
court.
testified in '92, right?
Had to testify in court. One story said he owed him the money for something related to real estate. When Jordan testified,
It was a gambling, yeah.
All of a sudden, the story start changing, gentlemen. We can remember these things.
So he just stopped gambling. He just stopped gambling with drug dealers.
Correct. Literally gambling with drug dealers, Neil. This is stuff that this is Oscar worthy.
When the NBA suspends Ja Morant for this gun, will that magically solve Ja Morant's gun situation or gun problems?
Well, you got to ask if he will get suspended. I mean, I guess the question is, did he get suspended?
That's number one.
Or did he take time off from the team? Like,
and let's be hold on,
Larry. The irony to the Ja Morant and this debate today. The NBA has actually said nothing.
They said nothing.
We heard about these 2 games from the Grizzlies.
And then the 4 more.
Right, the 2 games gone, both games in LA. No, he's literally in a holding pattern right now, and there's no news, there's no update. We haven't heard what the league has found. We don't know the next step. I don't even know if Memphis knows the next step. So it's actually a very, very interesting.
I think it's similar. Sorry, Neil, but I think it's similar to like maybe the Kyrie situation. But I feel like because Kyrie is a more what's the word I want to use? Maybe a
villain.
Yeah, a more vilified personality out there. The Brooklyn Nets made no bones about like saying, well, we're suspending him indefinitely. Like he did this thing that was abhorrent, and we're definitely against him until he could do these steps. He would never play again. And I think it's similar to Ja Morant, but it's just that Ja Morant means more to Memphis than Curry does to Brooklyn from a branding perspective. So they're trying to protect Ja, and they're not saying, oh, we're suspending him. It's like he's not going to play in these X, Y, and Z games, but he needs to do these X, Y, and Z things before he could come back to the court. I think that's the case. But
let me ask you this, Larry.
Yeah.
Coca-Cola came out and said that they're pulling all of his related imagery to do a Powerade, right? On what grounds?
Well, maybe I don't know. Can they just do it because they feel like it?
Well, yeah, but to me, you're doing that on the grounds that the man live and had the gun visible.
But it's not just the gun visible; it's also the other stories that were in the media and also the litigation. The guy suing him.
Right. So at some point, you were saying, all right, this is looking like it might be bad for business.
From Gatorade's perspective, correct?
Correct. So you, sir, now understand David Stern's situation.
Yeah. All right, wait, hold on.
Okay.
Hold on. I just want to be clear because I'm not gonna let it slide. We just compared Ja Morant in 2023 braving a gun on IG Live and beating youngsters to the greatest player of all time in the 90s, having brought the basketball almost single-handedly out of the dredges of the 70s and 80s and making it a global phenomenon and a cash cow. We compare these 2 men and the situations that we're doing here. No, Justin Marvel.
Yes, sir, because we're comparing the best American face in the sport industry to the best young American face in the sport.
Stop that. Stop it, Ricky. Stop it, Ricky. Ricky, stop it, Ricky. Ricky, stop it. Stop it, Ricky. Ricky, stop it, Ricky. No, Ricky. No, Ricky. Go.
Because, Neil, what you're doing, right, is that you are putting or you are trying to fool the watchers who are younger, who would not have grown up in the 90s like we did.
All right, pause.
What
you are doing instead of I'm trying to do something. You try to change history. So I see what you're doing. I ain't trying to change nobody's mind.
We just trying to give the younger viewers a reference point, which Larry expertly did.
You could get these youngsters on TikTok talk about how Ja Morant and Michael Jordan are equivalent. Free my man, Ja Morant.
No, they can start to ask, why is Ja Morant just in limbo?
Because he be having both a gun.
You have to put on glasses
70-year-old people.
Right? And remember what gambling was viewed as in the 90s as it is now. the skirt, it was look as a skirt, something that the same thing is situation with AIDS, but Larry and you will laugh because that's another topic for another
if we
time.
start,
I'm not doing
no,
that.
me neither.
Oh, we'll be here all night.
But the way gambling was viewed when we grew up is not what gambling is now. And it was like taboo to be talking about gambling. We saw what happened to Pete Rose, a man who did not even gamble for his team to lose and who has since been still banned from Major League Baseball. But we could go on, and you have to move on because we still have 2 more hot topics to talk about.
Running away as usual.
Larry,
Yeah, just
said-
dipsy doodling.
no, we have time constraints. So, Larry, you said you came armed and prepared for the second question.
Okay, then.
Coming up in the 90s, like all 4 of us did, we have been told over and over again that Michael Jordan is the greatest of all time. And we still hear this to this day, even though, the debate, the gap seems to have closed between him and LeBron James. Why do you feel that we have been pushed with that narrative that Jordan is indeed the greatest of all time without question?
Because I feel like from a media's perspective, it just seems, other than the accolades speak for themselves, correct? So everybody knows he 5 MVPs, 10 scoring titles. He has 6 championships, 2 3-peats. We have like quotes from Liber saying that he's Jesus or God, and a Liber Michael Jordan jersey, all of that, right? So I mean, it seems like even from the player's perspective that like this man is like something the league had never seen before. And I guess from the media perspective, pushing the narrative, I look at it like it just seems like everything went Jordan's way. I don't want to say that he's lucky, but for some reason, like when you're watching it feels like no matter what the situation, going down 0-2 in certain series against the Knicks or losing games at home in the 93 finals, losing the first game in the 91 finals, is like no matter what, Jordan is going to find a way to will his team to win no matter what. And like even in the second 3-peat, is like the push off, the jump shot goes in, past the Steve Kerr basket. It just seems like this guy is magic.
John
Paxson. So like I believe you have to be all right. This is like a 2023 talking point where it says you need luck. No one's from the 90s perspective is going to say, "Oh, you need luck to win." But I feel like Jordan was like really lucky to win, to go 6-0 in the finals in the manner that he did. But I don't think the luck takes away from the overwhelming dominance that a 6'6" shooting guard in a league that was dominated by 7-foot-plus giants did, like, is incredible. And I think maybe the media has like a David versus Goliath aspect, but Jordan was kind of like, his athleticism and physical tools were so off the charts that he could as well have been like 7 feet the way he played basketball, because he played it above the ring. He dunked on guys like Patrick Ewing. Like, I don't know. It just seems like from the media perspective, and I guess Justin, who is a writer, will be able to talk about how, like, it just seems like the story, like his career is like, there's just such a story here, how he like became like one of the greatest players ever.
Same thing, Ricky. Why do you think, without question, that Jordan at one point was seen as the unrivaled greatest of all time in basketball?
I'm going to bring a different perspective based on what I do every day for a living in terms of branding and marketing. I think that we had a situation where media needed, because of the takeover that the NBA had globally, and as a brand and a platform, media needed that generational asset to hitch their wagon to. And Jordan was that. Jordan allowed you to take over the world at a faster rate. And we all consumed it. So we're that Generation X, that grew up on this. And that was the one item that you could give us to consume, whether we liked him or hated him, right? So all of my new friends at the time and Celtics and so on hated this man. And same thing Larry said, ball bounced his way, things went his way, had these iconic moments, and we consume that, right? I think that as a result, the baby boomers and the Generation X will probably lean to Jordan because that's what we grew up on, right? No, I actually bring a different argument because if I see that, I see Skip Bayless built an entire career on bashing LeBron, understanding that if you're a bashing of LeBron, you're going to have people who want to tune in because you're now, you are the hater when it comes to this iconic brand, this LeBron brand. ESPN, on the other hand, went the other way. They said we can build an entire platform on all things LeBron. And you saw the same thing. It was almost to a point you said, wait, these men are clearly told to talk about LeBron James, regardless of where he was playing, whether he was in Cleveland, whether he was in Miami. You could see that, right? So on it from the generational context, where I tend to differ is that I don't understand why the Mount Rushmore approach is not used. Again, you have a market where Mount Rushmore is something people can relate to. You can relate to the faces that represent on Mount Rushmore, but I guess it makes more money if we argue for the GOAT narrative versus the Mount Rushmore narrative. Because I can tell you, I have this argument with some of my students in some of the classes that I teach, that Steph Curry, in my opinion, is the generational face. Think about it. There are children that are not as athletic as LeBron. No, they will never be as athletic and built like LeBron. So what do? They go to the courts all over the world and they try to shoot threes like Steph, right? So my argument sometimes is that if I look at what Larry was doing earlier, I look at the rings, I look at the part that you've had on a team and on the sport. Steph has changed the game as well. Steph has a whole generation that is approaching the game differently because they want to be like Steph, right? But for whatever reason, the narrative never goes to, is Steph the GOAT of this generation of Gen Z and Gen Alpha? Because for whatever reason, I guess it has been built as Bron versus Jordan. So yes, I get it. I get why you need to have that lead face and why the argument needs to be one versus the other. And the transition of generations, it makes sense from that point of view. But I just don't understand why it always comes down to the GOAT narrative. Whereas in other sports, they'll line up the Mount Rushmore and accept that you can have 4 or 5 faces of the sport over time.
Or in hockey, just one because Wayne Gretzky is unrivaled. But Neil, as one of the biggest Jordan fans I know, and I'm not here to not know your argument, why do you believe that Mike is widely regarded as the greatest of all time?
Well, first things first, I have to agree. Well, I agree with both Larry and Ricky, but I also do agree with Ricky that I always found it strange that in a team sport where we play various positions, you have one person being the greatest of all time. I personally subscribe to the top 10 of all time kind of narrative that's pushed around. They call it the Mount Rushmore now. But I always used to find it, I would make the facetious arguments and stuff like that, but really and truly it's very hard because I at one point used to think when it was actually in that era, I used to think that Wilt was the greatest of all time only because I never, I couldn't understand his numbers from coming into basketball, whatever. But anyhow, I think the reason why Michael Jordan was seen as the greatest of all time is because of a combination of things. One, the NBA was in a very bad place when he came into the NBA. Two, you had Larry Bird and Magic Johnson. They kind of were starting to stem the tide and bring the NBA back to some semblance of watchability and bringing back the fans to it. But then even they were in awe of Michael Jordan. So I think what Larry made mention of when Larry Bird made that mention of because he got beat, he got swept in that series. But Larry Bird, who was considered at that time to be the great white hope and up there with Magic Johnson and seemingly one of the greats, if not the greatest of all time, in certain households, certainly in Boston, you have him sitting on the podium saying that this man was God disguised as Michael Jordan. I think once you hear that, it's kind of like that is the proofing, the validation. Like, yo, if Larry Bird said that about this man, and Larry Bird is a killer. You know what I mean? That coupled with when your favorite player, while he was playing and while he would have retired the first and second time, would have had stories about calling him the Black Cat. Reggie Miller come out and said, in the preseason game, he scored X amount of points and Michael Jordan only had 2.5. He was like, yeah, new sheriff in town. And Michael Jordan came and held him to 2 points and went on to score some godly amount of numbers. And then he said, don't ever talk bad about Black Jesus again. It's like, yo, that's badness, right? Not only did he walk the walk, but he the talk was what was something different, right? We heard stories about how KG told a story about how, when he was a young, how KG was. He was like, yeah, boy, we don't. Who was the guard at the time? It was Mario Elliott. I can't remember, but it was.
Oh,
yeah.
GR Raider.
Right. He was like, yeah, GR. Yeah, that man ain't nothing, you know what I mean? He did. And Michael Jordan, the meme now, he took it personal, right? Like, Michael was larger than life because your favorite player and the players we consider the greatest thought that he was larger than life, right? He took the sport to a different level. He made NBA players rock stars when they went over into the Olympics in '92. He made sneakers cool, like really, really cool. And, he just had that competitive spirit and that drive and work ethic. Like, for example, it's like why the players nowadays, like Jason Tatum and DeMar DeRozan, etc., see Kobe Bryant as such a great, one of the greatest, if not the greatest of all time, because this is a man that showed up, had the work ethic, and had the badass moments and the thought to back it up. So it's like he is larger than life. It is one thing to have us here in the barbershop talking and saying, oh, Michael Jordan's the greatest ever. But when you got men like Larry Bird, you got Gary Payton, who's one of the greatest defensive players ever. You got Magic Johnson. You have all of these greats, well, except for a noted few that will come out and say, that man was real bad, right? That man was Black Cat. That's Black Jesus. Black Jesus. You have players calling this man Black Jesus, going off of Larry Bird saying that, and then you got players around the NBA that you say that's my favorite player, and he is regarding Michael Jordan as Black Jesus. Then, if you don't understand, not only from a basketball standpoint and from an impact standpoint, every time Michael Jordan says or does something today, it is a meme. He cried when he went into the Hall of Fame. That became a meme to this day, right? He said in the documentary that he took it personal. That's a meme now too, right? Where the LeBron James memes that come to mind readily that holds up well. Where the Larry Bird memes? Where are all of these memes? To me, I obviously don't think that he is the greatest single player of all time, because that would be ridiculous, right? Like, when you made that argument, you saying, okay, if he was to play against Prime Wilt, could he beat Wilt? If he was to play against Prime Bill Russell, could he beat Bill Russell, right? Like, that's a ridiculous argument. But if I am starting a franchise, or if I'm looking for a top shooting guard, that is Michael Jordan, right? I want a man, and you want a man that is 6, because you could go by the metrics, you could go by the weight, you could go by the strength, the muscle, everything. You want a player 6'6", 6'7". You want a player to be able to shoot the mid-range. You want a player that's athletic to go against the big. You want the man to have the mentality and the strong-willedness to just go against all of the haters, in the fans, the referees, all the adversity when it comes to the doubters, the public scrutiny, everything like that, right? So with all of that said, I think that is why a lot of people revere Michael Jordan as being great. And I think it stems from his peers seeing him as it's almost like a unicorn, or like Bigfoot, or like, shoot, you hear AI crossed up Michael Jordan, and he is on record saying that when he first saw this man, the man had a glow or an aura. You understand what he's saying? So it's like, whoever you love, whoever was your favorite player growing up, whoever you saw was like, yo, I love Grant Hill, I love this person, that person. They have a Michael Jordan story and have told a Michael Jordan story that made him seem like if he could indeed walk on water. Shoot, the man walked on air. Look at all the commercials, look at all the documentaries, look at all of the commentary and everything like that. So all of that builds the mystique. And I think it only I think it's only bolstered now because shoot, young kids have not seen Michael Jordan up close like we have. So they only have YouTube clips to go by. And unfortunately, history is always kind because you can watch those clips and you can see Michael Jordan doing incredible things against pro players. And you can be like, wow, he could have do that. Why the other players weren't doing that? But when you look at today's NBA, which I consider the greatest era of basketball right now in terms of a skill standpoint, everybody could do, he said, the 12 man off the bench could do what Michael Jordan could do athletically, right? So when you see the clips on YouTube, it makes you, it bolsters things. You see the man doing that against Mario Elie, you're like, shh, boy, Michael Jordan was a killer. But he doing that against some two guard you will never hear about before. So I think all that combines to give his mystique and his legacy almost kind of like a mysterious and almost fairy tale like thing. His career, shoot, the last shot in a Bulls uniform, that was, you couldn't write that in Hollywood for an Oscar, as my Ricky would say, so all of that builds to people being kind of romanticized into the fact that he is the greatest of all time. Personally, I think he's the greatest two guard of all time, the greatest single player of all time. I know we would have had this discussion in this space. Kareem makes a good argument, Michael makes a good argument, LeBron makes a good argument, no. And I don't have a problem with any of those things being said. Shoot, in another space, you could say Bill Russell was the greatest of all time. But by the same token, you can't have one greatest player of all time. Not in a sport that is like Usain Bolt is the greatest sprinter of all time. You can say that without a shadow of a doubt. You can't say any individual player in team sports is the greatest of all time.
You see, like what each and every one of you said, like you're right. Like I can't take away, like you said, Neil, the stories matter, the mystique, and then the player's view of him. Ricky came in from a branding aspect. And as Larry said, the reality of the situation is, right, everything broke Michael's way in the prime of his career. And on top of that, you can't ignore the accolades. So I will never come here and tell you all that Mike is not the greatest player of all time, or I will not come and say that he does not at least have a claim. Because when you look at his accolades, and let's give a brief run through, a 6-time finals MVP, 6-time champ, obviously, 5-time regular season MVP, 10-time scoring champ, defensive player of the year. We can go on and on and on. I think 10-time all NBA first team. Mike has the accolades, the stories, the points, whatever you want to justify him as an all-time great, if not the greatest player of all time. What I find a bit concerning, though, where Mike is concerned, and I agree with you all in terms of mystique, the branding, and the luck. What I find concerning is what wasn't said prior to Mike, and I bring this up. When we talk about LeBron or those LeBron detractors, and they may have a point when they say, why are people so ready to put LeBron above Mike when he has not may or may not have accomplished everything that Mike has accomplished? I hear that argument, and I am ready to live with that argument. But in the same token, the same wasn't said about Mike. And I say that to say it took me so long in my adult life to realize that Kareem needs to be in the conversation because of what Kareem achieved. And I'm like, but why don't I know this? Because, again, with LeBron not achieving everything that Mike did, you can say the same with Mike for Kareem. They both won the same amount of titles, but then you look at everything else, right? Kareem has more regular season MVPs. Kareem obviously has more points, more rebounds, more blocks. Actually, what I found weird is that Kareem is only 3 assists all time behind Mike. I found that I didn't know that before. And then you look at the accolades, more All-Star appearances, more all first NBA all team. And you can go down the list, right? So like you hold this against LeBron, but you don't hold this against Mike in Kareem's regard. And we would have grown up before Mike hearing, well, Larry Bird and Magic Johnson are the greatest of all time. But why wasn't the same said for Kareem? And gentlemen, the reason I brought up this, topic is because also, just like how we know about gravity, just like how we know 2 + 2 is 4, just like we know anything in physics. What we know is what has been told to us, what has been hammered in our heads over and over and over again. And again, this is not to say Mike does not have a legit claim as the greatest of all time, but it kind of helps when the media narrative has been pushed down your throat that this man has been greatest of all time, when the same has not been done for players prior to Mike. And I bring up Kareem simply because, right, when I look at what Kareem did during the time that Kareem did it, it is not a surprise that this man was not being mentioned. Give me a sec, Ricky. I'll get there now. Come to you. But it's not a surprise why Kareem was never, ever pushed heavily as the greatest of all time. This is the guy who started as Lou Alcindor and then quickly entering the league, converted to Islam. That, again, for our younger viewers, that is not that was frowned upon back in those days. Similarly, like Cassius Clay becoming Muhammad Ali, that was looked upon negatively back in those days. Kareem, now, took it even further. Kareem publicly said he had a distrust of white men and a distrust of white reporters, to the point where he hardly spoke to them. Then, famously or infamously, however you want to look at it, in 1968, he refused to play for the US in the 1968 Olympics because, as he said, and I quote, "This is not my country. I am not going to represent a country that does not represent me." And I say that to say media members, obviously, who would have been predominantly white during Kareem's time, refused to establish or recognize or acknowledge this man as the greatest of all time at that time, which he would have easily been. And when then obviously that media narrative is not pushed, and then you come to younger media narratives or younger media members who would have been following Jordan's career, they didn't hear the media before them touting Kareem. So they had no reason to tout it Kareem themselves. And then so you go into a situation now with media members now covering LeBron James, who'd have heard media members before them pushing Mike, but never again mentioned Kareem. Along the line of 2 or 3 generations, we have lost the significance of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And again, I'm not here to tell you that Kareem is definitely greater than Mike or greater than LeBron, but it is a disservice to Kareem that he has never been mentioned in the same breath of these two men. I just don't understand. Like, yeah, Larry gives me a weird look. Like, you, me, Neil, older heads, Ricky, we will know that Kareem should be mentioned in the same breath as Mike and LeBron.
Yeah,
but when you look at media narratives, it is. Hold on, I'm gonna let Ricky go. No, it is all LeBron or MJ. Go ahead,
I was gonna add the point about Lou Alcindor converting to Islam and the reality in sports and entertainment. We have this thing called Q rating, and basically they're looking at, how can your brand and your image be consumed based on the market that you're in. The reality of it is very few athletes that convert to Islam have high Q scores or Q ratings in North America. Muhammad Ali and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar being 2 classic examples. Sharif Abdul-Rahim, he almost didn't have a face or a voice until it was controversial. But as a player, we respected the player and the talent, but they essentially he disappeared until people had reason to hate him in a controversial way. So I think we answered that for Kareem. That's just the harsh reality. But I was just looking there to find something to share with you guys on the Q ratings, because there are athletes who had very, very high Q scores, and then they took a serious dip. Tiger Woods being a classic example. So it is just a lesson, because when I look to see who was among some of the highest Q ratings recently, based on the most recent scores I could find, Steph Curry is up there, because again, I think he just fits that all-American image that storyline. He looks like the average man in the street, and he still looks like a kid. So that is also very appealing. So sometimes these things come into play. We can't hide from it. But it was gonna add the point that you guys were saying earlier relative to Jordan. Jordan also came along and gave markets that were not major markets a chance to believe. So remember, we were talking about a sport that was essentially the Celtics, the Lakers, the Knicks, the 76ers, right? Teams like Chicago didn't dream of winning a title. The Pistons, they did it, but as a unit. So there was no real one face. It was the bad boys as a unit. Expansion has to thank Jordan as well. We wouldn't have had the Miami Heat Dwayne Wade years if we didn't have Jordan and the Bulls breaking through and giving these other franchises. Because of Jordan and our Midwest dominance, maybe that's why we have the Milwaukee Bucks of today, right? So I think that there is a legacy to Jordan there as well, because it broke away from the four pillars of the NBA at the time, which was basically the Celtics, the Lakers, the Knicks, and maybe Philly guys. I don't know. You would have to tell me if at that time, yeah, probably the 76ers. So yeah, you have him for that as well, because he gave all of those other franchises hope when they saw that story.
Quickly close up, Niels, before we go on to the last topic. Go ahead, Neil.
I can't remember my point right now, but the point, what was I gonna say? I was gonna say something along the lines of the reason why I think Larry gave kind of concern funny look is that those that I don't want to say those that I don't want to be disparaging, but I think those that kind of understand the game of basketball and have watched the game of basketball and have a kind of reverence and respect for the game of basketball would understand that Kareem has to be in the conversation, and Kareem has always been in the conversation, right? Like, if you call a top 5, a top 10 of basketball all time, and you leave off Kareem, something just ain't clicking over in your brain, right? Simply because Kareem was dominant for a long time, he was consistent for a long time, and he was impactful both on and off the court. Now, off the court, he was not impactful for necessarily the right reasons. Ricky went into it very well by speaking about the QR rating and everything like that. The Q rating and stuff like that. But to me, people that go LeBron James, Michael Jordan, or at the time Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, are people that are speaking from, I think, this is not a knock on anybody. I just want to be very clear, but they're speaking from a space of entertainment, of scoring, of a lot of like fun looking plays, like athletic
and
plays.
aesthetic.
Yes.
Right, aesthetic and dramatic, last minute crossover to win the game, last minute buzzer beater shot. Like Kareem, nobody wants to see a game winning.
Nobody was emulating the sky hook, really.
But nobody don't want to see a buzzer beater sky hook that look pretty. You know what I mean? Like Kareem is often overlooked because one, a lot of people unfortunately would not have seen him play or would have forgotten he played. And two, were swept up in the whole Michael Jordan coming down. Like you had the wing players, Vince Carter, Kobe Bryant, Tracy McGrady, coming all down the line to the athletic Allen Iverson basketball. So people watching would say, I would more want to see that type of basketball than to see defense, rebounding, grit, getting like 30 points out of the mud, kind of like putbacks and, that kind of energy plays. Nobody don't want to see those plays. Nobody don't want to see the grit and grind. But except people that understand that sometimes that is what basketball is about. If you're talking playoffs, and we are all for old school basketball fans, in a playoffs, we don't want to see the game go 140 to 142. We don't want to see that. We want to see defense. We want to see defensive stops. We want to see blocks.
You don't even want to see that in the All-Star game.
Yeah.
Preach. Go ahead, Larry.
Real quick. I think another issue, all y'all made excellent points about, especially Kareem off the court, why he was not well liked, and so on and so forth. I think when it comes to basketball, and Neil touched on it a little bit, the 70s were seen as a pretty down year in the NBA, and that was at the same time of Kareem's best years. Like Kareem dominated the 70s. And a lot of people like discard the 70s. Oh, everybody was on cocaine. Like everything was messed up. And even though Kareem won a title and won a trillion MVPs during the 70s, after that title and when he moved to LA, there wasn't a lot of success until Magic came along. So then even though Kareem won all of these titles and like got all this playoff success, it kind of was piggybacked on Magic's greatness. And I'm not gonna sit here and argue who's better between Kareem. I don't know, probably Kareem, but I think, and especially for our generation, where even some older than us that will remember the 80s, they kind of remember Kareem being like basically a secondary player to Magic, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that's kind of part of it, where it's like Kareem doesn't get the due. It's kind of like he's a little outside of this modern era. So
yeah, that's a good point. That's a very good point.
I'm glad y'all brought up the O'Neal, especially talking about, the aesthetics, Hollywood type stuff, because not only are the Oscars going on tonight, but on top of that, for some strange reason, and I find it strange to me, is that we're having a movie called Ear. And the reason I find it strange is because the movie Ear is dealing on the gentleman called Sonny Vaccaro, who would have been the guy who, I don't want to say rescued Nike, but he was a guy who got Jordan to sign with Nike. And well, the rest is history, because now Nike is this huge conglomerate worth multi-billion dollars. Considering, and the reason I find it strange is because we already did a documentary on Sonny Vaccaro in 2015 called Soul Man, ESPN 30 for 30 documentary. So Ricky, is there any coincidence to the timing of Ear, considering, again, we just saw the 30 for 30 documentary on the same Sonny Vaccaro?
No, I would like to say follow the money. There's no doubt that this is going to be well timed. There's no doubt that April 5th, 2023, I wanted to make sure you get the jump on the summer. If we remember the Last Dance, they knew what they were doing. Let me put it that way. When they placed it, they also benefited from the fact that all of us were locked away. So it became one of the best things to consume during the lockdown. But I do think there's definitely they do their homework. So they know that we want to know. We want to know what went into the storylines behind the scenes, the conspiracy theorist side of our population that model themselves off of people like Justin Marvel will want to see that behind the scenes side of it. But I also think that there's something going on globally with that industry in terms of athletic apparel and people discovering markets like Africa and brands other than this particular brand having success in markets like Africa and South America, that may need somebody to ask Hollywood, help me out here, frame and romanticize what went on that led us to that point. But let me put it out in the month of April, and let me give myself the entire summer for you to fall in love with my brand again. This is not coincidence, gentlemen. This is how the war is won in the trenches. And there's a brand that one of our ambassadors represents in this field that is making waves in parts of the world. So it's no coincidence that you put out content like this for us to consume and fall in love again. I'm sure Larry may have a few brands that he wears now that he wasn't wearing in his heyday. And I know for sure Neil rocking some stuff now that he didn't used to wear in the day, because I saw it myself. And ironically, yesterday, put on a brand that I never used to wear ever. And people met beer fun at me last night at an event and was like, wait, how come you got on these here? But again, started to drink the Kool-Aid. So yes, this is how the war is won in the trenches.
This is why we bring on marketing experts like me, and trust me, he is indeed a brand marketing expert. Larry, do you also agree with Ricky, or you think there's no coincidence at all to the timing of Air?
I personally don't think, but I mean, Ricky, he's the expert, right? He will know more than me. I personally don't think there's anything to it other than, of course, follow the money. I mean, it's pretty, from a different perspective as like a movie lover, I think is interesting where they make, like, as you said, there's already a documentary on it, and they somehow they make a movie. They have all these stars in it: Matt Damon, Viola Davis, Chris Tucker, Ben Affleck, and similar to like how the social network is, like you think of Facebook, and like Facebook is a pretty boring social media platform at this point. No one is like, you know what, I want to say a movie on how Facebook came about, but they did it and it was really good. So I'm sure like in this where Nike is this major brand, some people are going to be interested in like, you know what, how did Michael Jordan get signed, even though he's not in the movie, allegedly? But how did Jordan get signed? But some people don't really want to watch the documentary. They would prefer like a palette of like, you know, some entertainment, some stars that it likes, people that they've seen on screen before and be relatable. So I guess is like in a different package, is probably the same information from the 30 for 30, but it's like in a more digestible package, I guess. It'd probably be more entertaining, but to the
let me just add to what Larry is saying though. Viola Davis as Dolores Jordan.
Yes.
Ben Affleck as Phil Knight. That is where Larry, just to amplify what you're saying, that is where they get us to drink the Kool-Aid.
Correct. So it's very interesting. I don't have any conspiracy theories about the release date of the movie, but I'm really anxious to see where Justin is going with this.
So as the non-conspiracy theorist on this panel, Neil, do you buy that there is a coincidence to the timing of the movie Air? And for those who don't know, again, this is a retelling of the story of Nike executive Sonny Vaccaro signing Michael Jordan to the Nike brand, and the Nike brand taking off. And it does star Matt Damon as Sonny Vaccaro, and I want to say Ben Affleck as Phil Knight. I'll leave the rest of the casting for later for my point. Go ahead, Neil.
Wait, hold on. Sorry, just to interject. Is this the same Sonny that tried to sign Kobe as well?
Yes, it is the same Sonny that tried to sign Kobe as well.
Okay. Yeah. All right, continue.
Right. So
go ahead, Neil.
Right. So I agree with both Larry and Ricky. Ricky, I think it's all about money. I think it's about money and accolades. I think that we are coming up to, 50 years of the debut of the first Air Jordan. I think that's next year or something like that. I know that we are coming up to, 40 years for Air Jordan and 50 years for Nike itself. I think that's what it is. I think that, if you really want to go deep dive into it, like, the Jordan shoe is a very iconic shoe. Some may argue it's the most popular shoe, especially for streetwear, especially amongst African American people and people that like athletic brands. So, a lot of people may not know the story of the iconic shoe and how it almost didn't come to be. I think at this point everybody knows about Michael Jordan, but I see Marsha here. I have the chat here. Marsha was talking about the love for kind of like docudrama, documentary, docu-content kind of stuff. So, people are fascinated by these things. And I think you have Ben Affleck now. Ben Affleck is directing it. He's starring in it. You have Matt Damon in it. I think this is a ploy to try to get some sort of Oscar buzz in the next Academy Awards cycle. I just think it's, and as a filmmaker, you can see Hollywood struggling. Hollywood running out of ideas. Like they're nothing new on this right now. So why not tell? I think what a lot of people would want, which is probably, I would hope it never happens, and it probably will never happen, is a Michael Jordan biopic. I think that when you have players like when you have personalities, when you have celebrities like Michael Jordan, Michael Jackson, iconic people, I think it's very, very, very hard to have them being represented in a biopic because you have to find the right casting. I thought Elvis was going to be that, but apparently the guy did a very good job with that. But and I think since having a Michael Jordan biopic, and we all know Jordan is very, very stingy with his IP and his likeness, so chances are that may not happen anytime soon. This is the next best thing. This is the next best thing. This is the next best thing to Michael Jordan being on the big screen. And I use that expression loosely. So I mean, for sneakerheads, this can be a big movie. For people that love Jordans, this can be a big movie. For people that like docu content, as Marsha was saying in the chat, this is also gonna be something to watch. And of course, money, accolades, awards. So I mean, I know you could come. I still waiting to see the tinfoil hat. So I actually looking forward to your take on this, to be honest.
So let me start out by saying I agree with all three of you and Marsha in the chat. Like, this is a new trend of the dramatized realism in sports. Like Artie and Ricky said, like, this is what, what people are consuming now, and the brands battling each other for market space, market share. There's no doubt about that. We want to see these things, and like you said, Neil, as a content creator yourself, there's nothing new under the sun, and Hollywood is struggling. But I find it interesting, for lack of a better term. As I said, first off, we just had the Last Dance. That focused obviously on Jordan and not even the Chicago Bulls. That was during the height of the pandemic in 2020. 2015, we had this team situation. I don't know how they plan to retell this story, but we all saw the ESPN docuseries, the 30 for 30. No.
The conspiracy theory don't hit me. It don't hit me.
Hold on, you. So we had the 30 for 30 series on Sonny Vaccaro, right? Already. And it was called Soul Man. SOLE. Nice play on words. Talking about him, huh? And again, in that situation, Jordan played a huge role in that docuseries. But what I find interesting when I look through the casting of this movie, and again, obviously none of us have watched it, but what I find interesting in looking at the casting, you have major stars playing one film night, other playing Sonny Vaccaro, and not meaning Ben Affleck and Matt Damon. You have Jordan's parents, Viola Davis playing his mother, somebody playing James Jordan. You have somebody playing Jordan's infamous agent, David Falk. You even have somebody playing, I want to say, the son of the Adidas owner or creator. That son is Horst Dassler. Someone's even playing him in the movie, because apparently I think the Adidas guys, or one of those Adidas people, started in Nike. You know what I find interesting? Who's not cast in this movie, gentlemen? Who's not cast, as Larry hinted at, is Michael Jeffrey Jordan. There's no actor playing Michael Jeffrey Jordan. He's not cast in this movie.
Wow.
And the reason I find this so interesting, dating back to what I wanted to really say about Kareem, is the narrative. You have a situation where, the person who wants to push himself as the greatest of all time is a person who pushes, and I mean LeBron James in this instance, has a social justice outlook. And again, that is popular in these days, for lack of a better term. It wasn't popular in Kareem's day. And Kareem would have been a huge social injustice warrior, pushed hard. And again, a particular faction of society refused to A, push this guy's narrative, and B, acknowledge this man as the greatest. Gentlemen, and I agree with you all, I think it's a brand war, and this is what people are consuming. But the hidden narrative behind all of this, gentlemen, I honestly feel is a particular section, and I won't call any names or aspirations, but a particular section of humanity trying again to put a particular section of humanity in its place. Because I find it very hilarious that the man who essentially made Nike is not cast in this movie. So basically, what you're trying to tell me is that these two men made the mystique of the man and not the other way around. Because why else would you have Michael Jordan in the movie? Why are the two human beings or the two lead roles Phil Knight and Sonny Vaccaro? Because we've seen this already. We've seen Soul Man. We have seen the telling of this exact same story. The problem is the first time Michael Jordan played a huge role in it. Now all of a sudden he's not cast. Now all of a sudden, right, we have everybody pertinent to the making of this situation, but the man important, the most important figure himself. It is almost as if a section of society is trying to tell me, know your place. We were the ones who created this. So I'm going to tell you from the perspective Phil Knight and Sonny Vaccaro, because those are the two most important men, because they were the ones who built him and not the other way around. And that is where my tinfoil hat comes in, because I can't understand how you tell this story without the casting of Michael Jeffrey Jordan. I just don't get it. But y'all can refute me if y'all think I'm wrong.
Well, first things first, I want to say I caught out your conspiracy theory real late, and I should have seen it. I don't know why I didn't see it, but I think the reason why he didn't cast Michael Jordan in this is because, let's be honest, Michael Jordan has been very stingy with his likeness and appearance. So it's only now we see him in video games. Basketball video games have been around for decades, and it's only now that he has allowed people to use it. Well, no, but in contemporary times, he's allowed his likeness to be used year after year after year after year. You know, he's not a person that usually likes to make those types of things, and also too, I think that it's very, very hard to cast Michael Jordan. I think it's very, very hard to cast someone that is Michael Jordan, and that's outside of having to play basketball. You just need somebody to have the mannerisms down to look like Michael Jordan. You gotta be sick, but shoot, you don't even gotta be 6'6". Let's be honest. Hollywood could kind of cheat it. They could cheat it a lot. But to have a player that when you see, he's such an iconic figure. When you see this person, you're gonna pick him down immediately. Say, no, Michael Jordan. Like, you know, I reference it to. I don't know if you all remember a few years ago there was a Queen biopic, Freddie Mercury biopic, and the guy that played Freddie Mercury, they did a very good job of making him look like Freddie Mercury. And for the most part, I think he did a good job of the mannerism, and he got praised for it and everything like that. He has some prosthetics and stuff like that, right? So it's very hard. You have to have not only the look, but the mannerisms down. And two, you got to get the approval from the man himself. Like Michael Jordan is going to do it. Like he's going to have to sign off on it.
I agree, right? But here's the thing, right? You can't get, and I'm not disagreeing with you all, that you can't get his brand and intellectual property just like that. But then again, if you can't do that, and the story was just told less than 10 years ago, then why do it again? And I honestly believe there are nefarious purposes behind this.
Come on, so we say, man.
Again,
say it, man. LeBron.
Wait, question: do they have to? Does Michael Jordan have to sign off
on his likeness, or on this movie? No.
Why?
Yeah.
Why he has to sign off on his likeness?
On his likeness,
yeah. I mean, someone playing him in the movie. Does that? I mean,
that's his likeness.
Is that
boss.
true?
That is his likeness. That's his likeness, boy. He got to sign off on that. Nah, boy, you can't
sign off.
He has to sign off on it.
I agree with you, Neil. It is not easy to get his intellectual property. Like, we know that is hard to come by. But again, if that's the situation, you don't have to do this movie, or you don't have to do this content. I honestly believe they're nefarious purposes, and it's not overt. It is basically, we have to like this situation of certain people to push
I want you to speak. I want you to speak plainly. You dipsy doodling. Every conspiracy theory you have come out and said point blank, this is the conspiracy theory. You dancing around it. Say.
But there's the reason why. So I have to. coach my language very carefully. I'm afraid that I can't do that and say what I really mean to say. But I have a situation where, again, a sect of society is coming out about a movie, and yeah, sure. Let me just say it quite straight up. I believe, again, this is to show you we are not going to have black people, or we are not going to have this black man portrayed as the savior of this brand, or we're not going to portray it. So we're going to tell it from this particular angle. Same thing with situation with Kareem. We can't have a black man who is against the system. And this is not, I'll get to Jordan's situation quickly, but you can't have a black man that is pushing for social justice causes like Kareem, who is converting to Islam, who is saying he is distrusting of white America, who will not represent USA. Cannot have this man as the forefront of our sport or forefront of any brand. So that is why, or part of the reason why Kareem was blackballed and pushed aside for whatever. Because when you look at the people who came after Kareem, who the media were so quick to crown, Magic was not about social justice causes at the time. Larry Bird was white, obviously, and this is no disparaging knock on Larry Bird. And Michael Jordan infamously said he is not supporting one side or next because Republicans wear sneakers too. So everybody buys shoes. So he was the perfect cause for that side of society because he did not stand for any social justice causes at that time. So then when you have a brand that is so tied to a particular sect of society, again, like Nike, right? All the other content would have been pushed out where, again, Jordan may not have been a cause or a champion for social justice causes, but this is a black man at the end of the day. So this black man serves our purposes, but now we need to tell a story that pushes Phil Knight and Sonny Vaccaro, their aspect, and them being the saviors and the man who built Jordan, that other than the other way around. Because again, you and Marcia correct, you can't, it's hard to cast Michael Jordan for two clear reasons. You're not going to nail down the person, and two, to get his IP is hard. But there was no reason to tell the story because it had been told twice in less than 10 years. It's been told twice already. So then why are you coming back with it?
Here's another point.
Well,
and I think this
money.
And no. I mean, outside of that, right? My big question is, who cares, right? Like, as a moviegoer, as the overall movie going experience.
And we haven't watched the movie also, so we don't even know if that's true.
Right, we haven't watched the movie. Go ahead, Neil. Right, I'll let you finish right now. Right, like
yeah.
And he cares, right? Because the average moviegoer will not catch that, and they will not care, right? But just remember, and I've now living here in America, you've seen these subjects and how media and government has found a way to control people without them realizing.
Yeah, I think you're misunderstanding what he's saying.
So what happens, right? We, the average viewer, are not going to care, or we do not realize what is being done because, again, we don't care. But subliminally, you're hammering a point into people's brains without them realizing, right? And you do that enough over again. Similarly, like the case with Michael Jordan, I'm not mentioning Kareem. When you do something over again, even though it is not to the average person overt, it becomes reality. Like because it's ingrained in you. This is weird. Like, let's look at it. I did a break-in situation. We know. I had a joke the other day, right? And thankfully, it was my in-laws who told the joke. What is the one thing that we all think is in the Bible but isn't?
White people.
But however, we have been shown pictures of a white Jesus. We have been shown pictures of a white Mary through our entire life, and it has been ingrained in us to believe that Jesus is white, Mary is white, everybody in the Bible was white. When we should know better, there is no way that people of Middle Eastern descent could be white. So I say that to say, you, me, Ricky, Larry, we don't care, but this is in a subliminal message that is hammered home time and time again, where one race we're going to bring you back down to earth, because you can't be the savior or seen as the savior of anything. It is really us. Go ahead, Neil.
I mean, it's an interesting. The point I was trying to make is that my question when I saw the commercial of this movie a couple of weeks ago is, who really cares about this story, right? Like, I don't think like outside of the sneakerhead community, outside of historians, sneaker historians, etc., I can't see the average moviegoer saying, "Wow, I am looking forward. I'm gonna put this into my rotation." Now, when you attach big name stars like Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, and Viola Davis, you got Chris Tucker in the mix too. Once you put those people in there, right? Then I can understand why you will go and watch. Is you're going to watch the person or the persons,
Star
the
power.
actors,
Star
exactly,
power, Neil. Star power.
exactly. But I don't. I could care less about, because we all know how it can be, right? This is probably going to be a lot more melodramatic and a lot more I don't know, comedic than it needs to be. I think this is going to be a lot more drawn out than it really was. And it's going to be a lot, well, either drawn out or condensed, however you look at it. The point is that there's going to be embellishment. And I just feel like, who cares? Who cares about how, like, to me, you just got to know that Michael Jordan was going to sign with Adidas. And through a combination of his parents and some very, very, very good marketing by Nike, or pitching by Nike, sorry, they got him to sign with Nike. But why you can sit down for 2.5 hours to watch Ben Affleck in a funny looking wig and Matt Damon running around in a funny New York accent trying to win, or a Chicago accent trying to get this man to sign with? I like, and then when you think about it, right? Like, I'm a movie buff. I into movies, right? So this movie is coming out in April 5th, right? Coming out here the other day, right? It's gonna start to kick off summer. This movie could not come out a month later or a month before, because nobody will watch it, right? They're coming to the quiet just before the storm. This movie is honestly, I mean, I'm not disputing or decrying your conspiracy theory. I'm not knocking it or condoning it or anything like that. I'm just saying that at the end of the day, like when I saw this, I was like, I don't care. I just don't care. I don't care to see Ben Affleck. I don't. And the thing about it is that, sorry to cross you, but at the end of the trailer, you see I think it's like a silhouette or the back shot of Michael Jordan entering a press conference, right? So then I'm like, okay, maybe this may have some elements of Michael Jordan. Look up the credits, no. And then when you think about it, like, why would who young black art actor gonna be stupid enough to want to be cast as Michael Jordan in this movie? Because one, it could go one or two ways now. It could go extremely well, or you could get a lick up and then be like, when I use Michael Jordan, you know. So I don't know, man. I just think it's funny. I don't care.
Before I get on one last thing about subconscious thoughts, as Ricky kind of alluded to, look at the title of the movie. Here, The Making of a Legend.
But hold on, Justin, because back to intellectual property. No. You cannot put Jordan anywhere in that title. You cannot put Jordan.
No. I did not say that. No, Neil. You're missing my smart language. It is not that Jordan's name is not in it. Again, remember I said, it is that these men are spinning again, not that Jordan made them. That these men made Jordan, because look at the title again. The Making of a Legend.
Making of a Legend. I understand what you're saying.
So basically,
that they were responsible solely, like Nike is who made Michael Jordan.
There you go.
Well, the Jordan brand specifically.
Yeah. Let me just add, though, coming back to Neil's question. Amazon cares. The Amazon brand cares, because this is Amazon's first foray into the theater world without this coming on Prime Video. So I know Neil could appreciate that this is Amazon saying, all right, we was in this space here and we used to leave that space to winner. But this movie on April 5th, 2023 is us saying we also coming for some of that. Know that the world is going back into the theater. That's why it will be significant for many, because if Amazon does this well and they establish a share of influence in that space, we could see Amazon going after a much younger generation with totally different content because it's the first time that they're stepping into that space.
Yeah, I just find it, I don't know. To me, if I were, because let's be honest, right? Amazon, and I agree with you, Ricky. That is a very good point. I just find like why with this project? You know what I mean? Like out of all
That
of it, I don't know why they.
That I don't know.
I feel like this can
That
go
I
so
don't
many
know. But
different ways.
if I take the world of sport and this world that Amazon is looking to dominate, there has to be something content wise with these next two generations, Gen Z and Alpha, that these men are onto that we just ain't seeing yet.
Yeah, true.
Why this project, guys? Why this project? We've been here a long time, so again, Larry, did you want to close up this segment?
No, it's fine. I think Niels and Ricky said a lot about what I was on. So I was actually legit waiting on where you were headed. So, I mean, if I can see the movie to see if there's credibility to what you're saying, I guess that would like stamp it in my mind. Like, yeah, I agree. But since I haven't or anything, I'm not sure. But we will see. I mean, when we watch it, you could come out looking like a genius, Justin.
Which really does.
Movie night on this end of the world, Justin. The fellas gonna get together and go and watch it.
Yeah, we gonna watch it,
man. I should be home actually, funny enough, April the 8th. So we can all go as a gang and watch this movie together with
perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Heard it here first on #ThisJustin. All of us will be the weekend of April 8th going to watch Ear, the making of a legend. Neil, you have multiple endeavors in terms of content creation that go well beyond this show. So please tell us where to find them and what it is that you do.
Okay, so aside from this, Justin producing it and sometimes coming to listen to Justin Marvel just spew some conspiracy theories that will make your head spin. I also do the Senate podcast every Tuesday and Thursday at 8 p.m. Barbados time. You can check that out. That is a male-centric podcast. Basically, we deal with life, love, and everything in between from the perspective of two Black Caribbean men. We've been having some success with it. Had a nomination for the Going On Awards for the Podcast of the Year. We also, thank you very much. We also had an article in Barbados Today. And of course, we have on May 6th, the King's Gathering, where we are going to have kind of like a conference where Ginger Lily Hall in the Bell, we're going to have a conference where, men come out dressed well. Ladies, you could come out to just, dress as the king and queen that you are. And we can just talk about how, we could be better men, better people from life, love, health, mentally, physically, finances, and everything like that, legally, everything like that. So check us out, May 6th. And then, of course, in the Senate podcast, we still do the Senate shorts. They're a bit lighthearted, but, we still come punching. We're talking things. Outside of that, we have the Bob Movie Crew. Now, I know we haven't done the Bob Movie Crew in a long time. Shout out, Mark. We have actually two. Larry and Justin are also original members of the Bob Movie Crew. The Bob Movie Crew, we used to go watch movies that turned out to be bad, and we even walked through the few of them.
Air.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. I found it funny that when you said that you can be here and we can all go and watch it, I was like, cheese on bread. That's two podcasts and one we can lick off, boy. A review of Bad Movie Crew and this Justin. But we also do that space as well. So if you want to check out any content we do, you can check on YouTube, the Senate Podcast, and we're the BMC, Bob Movie Crew, on YouTube as well. Instagram is, I ain't good with these things, fellas. That's the truth. Senate Podcast 246. I don't think we have an Instagram for BMC. But anyhow, check us out. We're trying to do big content. And my goal next year is to have every podcast I produce being nominated for the Going On Awards. Everyone. That way I increase the odds of winning something.
That includes. Please go check them out. Bad Movie Crew and the Senate Podcast as well. You can find them on Instagram. You can find them on Facebook, but mainly YouTube because they are YouTube shows. You can also find us on YouTube at a different time because the clocks here in the United States have gone forward. So now we are indeed 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern, primarily on a Monday night on YouTube. That is #ThisJustIn. create content like this, please put in the hashtag because you don't want Max Kellerman and his cold takes. You want controversial and insightful sport debate and analysis of hashtag This Just In. Find us, as I said, every Monday night on YouTube. Also produce short form content that we put on Instagram, we put on Facebook, and we put on Twitter. That's hashtag This Just In on all 4 platforms. If you can't find us, you are not looking hard enough. So for Larry, for Ricky, and for Neil, I am indeed Justin of hashtag This Just In signing out for the greatest Michael Jordan episode you will ever find on YouTube. Good night, folks.
Give me a good dollar.
I know that after tonight, you don't have to look up at the stars. No, 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 no. I
Come take a look at my
that
dream
after
world.
Tonight, you don't have to look up at the stars.
Chat. If you wanna come get it, then come for it. I'm so clean, my kick's nice, I'm Chuck Norris. Minute made the beat bounce, had to jump on it. Run for it, run, Gump Forrest Gump like hollow pumps, you gotta jump. No trouble, no double, I got a stun. You don't have to look up at the stars. Make one wish, you're looking at a star. Swag so fresh, you can put it in the jar. And the way I change gear, you can put me in the car. I remember when me and Seif used to sneak in every concert.